Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I do have a 6th grade student asking a couple of questions about inequalities, solving equations, things like that. So I do have his homework that we're going to go through together. So without further ado, let's get right to it. All right, so first question here that I got is 8m is less than or equal to 56. And what it's asking me to do is it's asking me to solve and then graph it on a number line. So the first thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about is what is the difference between an inequality and an equation? An equation means one possible answer. So let's say, for example, m equals 8. Well, what does that mean? It means that m is 8, right? M and 8 are the same exact thing. That is it. M is not 7.9, m is not 7.8, none of those things. Inequalities are a little bit different though, because it expands our horizon. So let's say, for example, m is less than or equal to 8. Well, what does that mean? Well, what it means is that m is every single number that is less than or equal to 8. So 8 is one of them, but also 7.9, 7.8, negative 100 million. All these numbers are all answers to this thing. So it expands our horizon. So because of that, we have to show our answer in a different way, usually using a number line with an arrow pointing in the direction of everything that is an answer. Now, the way that I'm reading this is based on the direction of it. So a lot of people always ask, how do you know if it's greater than or less than? Well, what I'm doing is I'm reading from left to right, and if the back of the inequality sign is facing my variable, then it's less than. Remember, the inequality sign is always eating the bigger side. So if I wanted to read it from right to left, this case, it'd be 8 is greater than or equal to m. But if I read it from left to right, it's m is less than or equal to 8. All right. So how would I solve this? Well, I'm going to solve the inequality just like I would solve an equation. So inverse operations, the 8 is multiplying by the m, so I'm going to divide both sides by 8. So then I get m is less than or equal to 7. Now, in terms of the number line, things get a little bit different. So if I draw a number line, let me put 0 here as reference, and let's say 7 is right here. Are all of my answers going towards 0 or going away? Well, m is less than or equal to 7. Well, 0 is less than or equal to 7, so it's going towards it. So I'm going to draw an arrow going towards all of the answers that make sense. Now, the only other thing is it a solid or is it a hollow circle at 7? Well, that depends on the sign. In this case, it's going to be solid. The reason why is because it's less than or equal to 7. So 7 is part of the answer. So I have to put that solid circle there to show everybody like, hey, just so you know, 7 is a part of it, right? Because you got to imagine, if I didn't give you this, how would you know what this is, right? How would you be able to differentiate if it's greater or less than or equal to? That's what the solid dot lets me know. All right, now, negative 4/3 x is less than negative 8. How am I going to solve this? Well, the negative 4/3 is multiplying times x, so I have to divide by negative 4/3. How do you divide by a fraction? Well, you multiply by the reciprocal. Remember, keep, change, flip, right? So I'm going to keep this. I'm going to change my division sign, well, to a multiplication sign. And I was originally dividing by negative 4/3, so I'm going to flip this one. And that's going to give me negative 3/4. Well, I'm going to do that on both sides. So I'm also going to multiply this side times negative 3/4. Now you could cross reduce, that's probably what I would do, right? I see that this is 3 and 3. 3 goes into both of them, I get 1 and 1. But let me just show you how this works. Negative 3 times negative 4, negative times a negative is a positive, that gives me positive 12. 4 times 3 is also 12. X. 12 divided by 12 is equal to 1, so you get 1 times x. And well, 1 times any number is just that number, so that just gives you x. That's kind of the process on why this works. So I get x is less than, well, negative 8 times negative 3, that's positive 24. And then I divide by 4, and 24 divided by 4 is equal to 6. So I get x is less than or equal to 6, right? Wrong. One thing I forgot. You have to flip the sign. The reason why is because as we get older, we start realizing that negative 1 isn't just a negative, it means opposite, right? So when I multiply both sides times the opposite, I'm flipping it, right? So let's say, for example, this. A little bit of a tangent here. Let's say we have something like this. Does everyone agree? Negative 1 is greater than negative 2. right? It's less negative, that's the reason why. But what if I multiply both sides times -1? Well, -1 times -1 is 1, and -2 times -1 is 2. Is 1 greater than 2? No. So the C, when I multiply by a negative, that is the opposite, right? So what happens is I have to move my inequality to the other side. I have to flip my inequality as well to represent that change, that opposite change. So in this case, now it makes sense. That's the reason why. So in this case, x is greater than 6. I draw my line here. I put down a 0, put down 6. Well, x is greater than 6, which means, is it going towards 0 or away from 0? That's right, it's going away from 0 this time. And since it is greater than, that means that 6 is not included, right? 6 is not an answer because 6 is not bigger than 6. So I put a hollow circle right here to represent, hey, just so you know, I know that 6 actually isn't an answer in this case. Okay, next one here, -7x is greater than 56. Well, I'm going to divide both sides by -7. That gives me x is less than -8. And so in this case here, put my line, 0, -8. X is less than -8, so is 0 less than -8? Nope, which means I'm going away from 0. And since again it's less than, that means -8 is not included, so I draw a hollow circle. Okay, m over -5 is greater than or equal to -2, I believe. Just kidding, it's 2. Okay, so now inverse operations again. M is dividing by -5, right? Or this is m divided by -5. What's the opposite? Multiplying. Well, these are going to cancel out. The reason why is because if I multiply this out, let's just do normal. -5m over -5. Well, -5 divided by -5 is 1. 1 times m is m. And then 2 times -5, that's -10. And again, we're multiplying by that negative. That's that opposite idea. So the sign is going to have to flip, making m less than or equal to -10. My line in this case, I put down a 0. I put down -10. And m is less than or equal to -10. So we're going to go away from 0 because it's got to be everything less than -10. And since it's equal to, solid circle this time. All right, I got some word problems for you guys. It says Kira and 5 friends shared a bag of fruit snacks. Each person got no more than 3 fruit snacks. The inequality x divided by 6 is less than or equal to 3 represents this situation. Solve the inequality to find the possible number of fruit snacks that were in the bag. Okay, well, it gives me my equation. It says x divided by 6 is less than or equal to 3. So I'm just going to solve for x. This is telling me division, so what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to multiply both sides times 6. Multiplication and division of the same number, that's like yin and yang. They're going to be canceling each other out here, so this is just going to cancel out, just giving me x. And in this case, 3 times 6 is going to be 18. So x is less than or equal to 18. So word problem, word answer. The way that I would say this is that the bag has no more than 18. The reason why is because each friend got no more than 3, which means they got a maximum number of 3. Well, we have to assume the maximum, which means each got 3, which would be my maximum number of 18. But we have to take into account that that's the max. So it could also be, you know, everything less. So x is less than or equal to 18 would be the answer in this case. All right, next one here. Over the next 17 months, Eli needs to read more than 102 ebooks. Jeez. The inequality 17x is greater than 102 represents the number of ebooks he needs to read per month. Solve the inequality to find the number of ebooks Eli needs to read per month. Good luck, Eli, by the way. That's ridiculous. Okay, so let's say 17x is greater than 102. That is the equation that's given to us. The 17 represents the months, right? 17 months times the number of books has to be greater than 102 ebooks. The reason why it's greater than is because he needs to read more than 102 books, right? So we have to find something that allows him to read more. Again, good luck, Eli. I don't even know how he's going to do that. But we're going to solve it for him. And the way that we're going to do that is the same thing that we've been doing, right? Inverse operations. 17 times x, what's the opposite? Well, that's division. I'm gonna do it on both sides because I gotta keep everything balanced. 17 divided by 17 is 1. 1 times x is x. X is greater than, well, how many times does 17 go in 102? I don't really know, so I'm gonna guess. Change 17 to 20, change 102 to 100. Well, 20 goes in 105 times, so I'm gonna assume it's gonna be around 5, right? Let's do 17 times 5 here. 7 times 5 is 35. Okay, this gives you 8, 85. Okay, that doesn't work. Okay, so let's keep it going. We can go 1 up then. Let's do 17 times 6, 42. Well, 1 times 6 is 6, plus 4, 100. So 6 times. So x is greater than 6. Now again, word problem, word answer. It means that in order for Eli to read 102 ebooks or more than 102 ebooks over the 17 months, he has to read over 6 books a month, right? He could do 7, he could do 100. I don't really care in reality, right? It's just got to be more than 102, and that's how you're going to get there. All right, so we're halfway through this homework, so let's get to this next one here. Looks like Isaac has a bag of peanuts. He shares the peanuts with 5 of his friends. Each person gets at least 18 peanuts. The inequality 18 is less than or equal to n divided by 6 represents this situation. Graph the solution of this inequality. Okay, so 18 is less than or equal to n divided by 6. Well, we know now, since we've been doing it, anytime you're dividing, right? If I want to get rid of it, I have to do the opposite, so I'm going to multiply. Times 6 times 6, okay? These are going to cancel out, leaving you with n. Well, what is 18 times 6? I don't know. I do know 20 times 6, though, is 120, and 2 times 6 is 12. So 120 minus 12 is 108. So I'm going to get 108. And now we have to graph this. So if I want to graph this, I'm going to draw my number line. Okay, I'm going to put 0 somewhere. Let's just put 108 right here. And 108, or see, this is the part where people get tricky or get tricked a little bit. You get 108 is less than or equal to n. I would never read it like that. Always read in terms of n. So n is greater than or equal to 108. That makes a lot more sense, right? So in that case, I know that my values have to be greater than or equal to 108. I'm gonna put my solid circle here, and it's gonna be greater than 108. Is 0 greater than 108? No, so I'm gonna draw this direction. All right, next question here. It says solve the inequality, and then there's a B, check for reasoning part. Describe how you know the direction of the inequality sign without solving the inequality. Geez. Well, the equation is negative 3x is less than 12. First things first, let's answer B here real quick. How do I know what direction it's going to be? Well, the fact that this is negative, I'm going to be thinking in advance. I'm going to have to divide by a negative, which is going to flip the sign. That's how I know. The fact that I know that I'm going to have to divide by a negative number to get rid of this negative 3, since it is multiplying times the x, tells me that this sign is actually going to be greater than in this case instead of less than. It's got to flip. Now, what's the answer? Well, I'm going to divide by negative 3 on both sides. That's going to give me x. Again, this is going to flip greater than 12 divided by negative 3. Well, 12 divided by 3 is positive. Positive divided by negative is a negative. So x is greater than negative 4. All right, people, 3 more questions. So next one here, we got higher order thinking. Renata and her family go through an average of more than 15 cans of sparkling water each day. They buy cases of 24 cans at $3.50 a case. Write an inequality for the number of cases they go through in 30 days. Okay, well, in order for me to figure this out, let's kind of like write down the facts here. So this family is drinking more than 15 cases per day. That's what they said. So 15 per day. Okay, cool. So that's part 1. Part 2 is the fact that I'm trying to figure this out over 30 days. And there's 24 cans per case. So remember, math is a language, right? And so what we're doing here when it comes to word problems like this is I'm translating math into English, or English into math more like. So if she has 15 cans per day and 30 days, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to do 15 times 30. The reason why is I want to know how many cans she's drinking in total within these 30 days. So 15 times 3 is 45. You just tack on the 0. So in other words, they're drinking 450 cans in 30 days. Okay. Now I'm going to set up my equation because, well, the question's asking me how many cases are they consuming? Well, there's 24 cans per case. So 24 for the first case, 48 for the second. Notice how what I'm doing is I'm multiplying because I'm skip counting. So in other words, 24, let's call cases C in this case, that makes sense, right? Then we have to translate, it's more than, right? So more than means greater. It doesn't mean equal to, right? It wasn't like at least, it said more than. So that's greater than 450. Because they drink more than 15 per day. Well, now I just have to solve for cases, right? Because this is 450 individual cans. So if I divide it by 24, that's going to give you the amount of cases because it's going to tell you how many of these cans I can group individually into these 24 cases. So I'm going to divide by 24 on both sides. It's going to give me cans is greater than, well, 24 goes into 45 one time. 24 goes into 45 one time with 21 remaining. So I'm going to carry that over. 24 goes into 210. Well, I know 24 times 10 is 240, so it's not going to be 10. If I do times 9, that's going to be 24 less than 240, which 220, 216. So not 9, it's going to be around 8. Okay, 24 times 8. 2, 3, 19. So I get 192. So we're going to do 18 and then 210 minus 192. Well, 8, 10, that's going to give me 18. So 18 over 24. Then I can reduce here. I'm noticing that these are both divisible by 6. So that's going to be 18 divided by 6 is 3. 24 divided by 6 is 4. So 18 3/4. But we don't do fractions in like dollars. So 3/4 as a decimal is 0.75. So 18.75. But here's the problem. The problem is that can I buy 3/4 of a case? I mean, maybe if you're trying to bargain or something. But in terms of this question, I'm assuming not, right? They would tell us if we can bargain. So it's got to be greater than. So in this case, we're going to call this, instead of 18.75, we're going to call this 19 cases. Because I got to buy a whole case, right? I can't buy part of a case. This would have been the answer to part A right here. Right? Just solving this equation. But there is a part B, which I'm kind of getting to. Part B says, solve the inequality in part A. Okay, that's what we just did. And then, if they buy only full cases, how much do they spend on sparkling water in 30 days? Again, full cases, right? That's assumed. And now it told us, so double confirmation. And how much do they spend in 30 days? Well, this is how many cases they consume in 30 days. So if I want to figure out how much they spend, well, it told us, I forgot to write that down, that each case is $3.50. First of all, what a steal, right? $3.50 for 24 cans. Those cans are dirt cheap. So what I'm going to do here in this case is if I take my dollar amount and I multiply it times my quantity, that's going to give you how much it cost. So 3.5 times 19. If you want to multiply by decimals, you just ignore the decimal and you plop it on at the end. So 5 times 9 in this case, well, that is 45. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 4 is 31. Put down a 0 for place value. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 3 is 3. I get 6, 6, 5. Now there's one number behind the decimal place in the question. So one number behind the decimal place in the answer. Put a 0 here because this is a dollar amount. So in other words, they spend a total of $66.50 on cases over the 30 days. Okay, next question here. Looks like negative 38 and 3/4 is less than negative 6.25x. And it's asking us not only to solve this, but to graph it on the number line. All right, well, first things first, here's what I'm noticing is that ones in fractions and ones in decimals. It's kind of up to you what you'd rather work with, right? You can work with decimals, you can work with fractions. In terms of the fact that I'm doing this by hand, I prefer fractions personally. So I'm gonna change this to negative 6 1/4 x. Now, when I'm multiplying or dividing by a fraction, you need everything to be in improper fractions rather than mixed numbers. So I'm gonna change everything here. 40 times 4 is 160, 2 times 4 is 8, so 38 times 4 is gonna be 152, plus 3 is 155. 4 times 6 is 24, plus 1 is 25, so negative 25 over 4x. All right, next thing here is I am multiplying times negative 25/4 with x, so inverse operations tells me to divide. Dividing is the same thing as multiplying times the reciprocal. I'm gonna do the same over here. Now, I would multiply all the way out, but notice that these diagonals are just looking too juicy right now, right? I'm seeing a 5, I'm seeing a 5, I'm seeing a 4, I'm seeing a 4. I could cross reduce. So what goes into 4 and 4 evenly? 4. So 4 goes into 4 one time. 4 goes into 4 one time. What goes into 25 and 155 easily? Well, I know for a fact 5 does. So 25 goes into 5 one time. Or 5 times, sorry, whoa. And then 5 goes into 155. Well, 5 goes into 15 3 times, and 5 goes into 5 once, so 31. Then from here, well, a negative times a negative is a positive, so I don't have to worry about that. 1 times 31 is just 31. 5 times 1 is just 5. Is less than x. So that's your answer there. We can change this, into a mixed number if you wanted to. 5 goes into 31 6 times with 1 remaining. Doesn't really matter. Main thing here now is my number line. So I'm gonna put my 0. Well, 6 1/5 is gonna be somewhere out here. So let's just put 31/5 here. Now, x is greater than 6 1/5. So in that case, hollow circle, because it is greater than, so it's not included. But it's also greater than 6 1/5. So is that going towards 0? No, it's going away. That's how you'd solve it. For y'all that are still here, respect. We are on the last question now. So our last question here reads like this. Inga plans to build a treehouse that is 1/3 the size of Andrew's treehouse. Inga plans to make the area of her house at least, okay, so at least, that means bare minimum, 13 square feet. Write and solve an inequality to find the area of Andrew's treehouse. Let x be the area of Andrew's treehouse. Describe how you know which treehouse is larger without solving the inequality. All right, let's get to it. All right, so there's a couple of very important things that we need here. Well, we got some people. Let's write their names down, right? We got Andrew. And we got Inga here. And we know that Inga wants a treehouse that is 1/3 the size of Andrew's. So let's just do of. I'm gonna put A because I'm getting lazy. 1/3 the size of Andrew's, cool. And we also know that Inga's is at least 13 feet. Cool. So first thing I'm saying is at least. What does that mean? Well, for example, if you have to drive, you have to be at least 16 years old. If you're trying to ride a ride, you have to be at least, I don't know, like 4 feet, 6 inches tall, something like that. All sets the bare minimum. So in other words, you have to be greater than or equal to that height or age in order to do these particular things. I just said it out loud. This is going to be greater than or equal to. So now I have to translate. I'm going to put Inga, let's just put I for Inga, is greater than or equal to, well, 13. Cool. That's Inga. But let's talk about Andrew here, right? Well, Andrew, right? In terms of this, we know that Andrew is going to be basically 3 times Inga, right? So that's kind of like the relationship here. So what I can do here is instead of putting Inga, what I can do is I can replace this with 1/3 Andrew. Because Inga wants to be 1/3 the size of Andrew, right? And I had to incorporate this somehow. So in that case, instead of writing this in terms of Inga, let me just write it in terms of Andrew. And Inga and 1/3 Andrew are the same thing. So 1/3 Andrew is equal to, or greater than or equal to 13. So what am I going to do here? Well, I'm going to multiply both sides times 3. Right? That's going to undo this because it's the same thing as 3/1. So I am still dividing by this fraction, right? Well, these are going to cancel out, just giving you A is greater than or equal to 13 times 3 is 39. Well, so now we know that Andrews, if I want to do word problem, word answer, right? This is a word problem. I would say Andrews is at least 39 feet. Right? Because all I cared about is Andrew. I don't really care about Inga, to be honest with you, because I already know what Inga is. Okay. Now the second question was, how do I know which one's bigger without doing the inequality? Well, I knew Andrew's was bigger because Inga's is 1/3 of the size, right? 1/3 of the size means smaller, right? If I'm saying, hey, my younger brother is 1/3 of the size of me, am I saying that he's bigger than me? No, I'm saying that he's smaller than me, right? That's the idea. So the fact that I knew that Inga was 1/3 of the size automatically tells me that I already knew for a fact Andrew was at least, or Andrew is bigger. And in fact, if Inga is 1/3 of the size, I know that Andrew is 3 times bigger, right? It's going to be the opposite. We're doing the same thing. I'm just doing it from different perspectives. So I already knew kind of what this had to be before I did it. But that's it. We finished the homework for today, guys. If you guys want me to do videos on stuff that you guys are doing in class similar to this, always drop it down in the comments. Without further ado, I'll see y'all next time. Take care. And as always, peace out.